Hello and welcome on this awesome day. Today is February the 8th. We are just a few days past the release of Everfest, and I couldn't be more excited to bring you some interesting news from ICV2. Looks like they have done an interview with James White from Flesh and Blood. And what's really amazing about this information is right on the heels of Everfest, it helps give some information that I think that the community has been greatly looking for. Some of this information was also talked about in the interview that was done by Instant Speed Podcast. I highly recommend checking out that, as I do believe the questions that were asked were, just honestly the questions I would have wanted to ask James White. And the answers that were given were great. There definitely is some problems, and they are addressing those. And I think that some of that is also kind of flushed out in this document. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And we're going to go ahead and talk about this this interview with the publisher, James White from Legendary Stories. I keep saying Legendary Story Studios. It's actually Legend Story Studios. I keep screwing that up. It is such a hard habit to break, and I don't know where I picked it up from. But in this interview, obviously they're concentrating on Everfest and the environmental sustainability of the product itself, which, is, again, a very phenomenal thing that Flesh and Blood is trying to pioneer this. I know that Magic the Gathering did this at one point in the past with an old, I think it was Modern Masters or Modern Horizon set, but they were and again, this is something the professor did talk about, they were boxes, like this wooden box here, but they were in paper, but they let the cards shake around, very much like this, and that was very damaging to those cards. Now, in this case, this is just, a bunch of top loaders for my mechanologist deck, where I have all of my equipment in it, and that's what I take with me to my armory events. But that's here nor there. But it was just kind of a visual representation. But those boxes didn't really do the product any justice. Now, the new way, this Everfest, the paper, the individual paper wrapper, compared to how they did it in the past with the plastic, I have seen absolutely no problems with this so far. People have said some, oh, my card has a little bit of damage, or there was one LGS owner in one of the groups that had stated that a bunch of his cards, he could see damage on the top of the individual cards in a certain area. But realistically, in the grand scheme of things, there has not been anything like my card is, bent in half, or it's, I haven't heard any of those kind of stories personally. So Cardamundi is obviously the publisher here that, created, or I guess printed the cards here. And one of the things I did want to point out is that Everfest was printed in Belgium, which is the same printing facility that brought you the Welcome to Wraith Unlimited, Monarch Unlimited, but then they switched to Japan for some of the other printing runs. But in this case, this was printed, it looks like, in the Belgium facility from everything I've gathered based on the bottom of the box. When you look at the bottom of an, I'm going to go grab one real quick. I think I have one. I do. So here we go. We're going to actually go ahead and make myself just a hair bigger here for the moment. Whoop, here we go. And you'll see on the bottom of these boxes here, so like this one here, this one is made in Belgium. That's a Tales of Aria Unlimited box. Actually, no, I lied to you. That's a Tales of Aria First Edition box. This is an Unlimited Welcome to Wraith. This one here is the one that's made in Japan. This is a Unlimited Monarch, but this one is done in Belgium. And then here's your Everfest box. And this Everfest box is, again, it says right there, made in Belgium. So that's awesome that they have, it looks like use the same facility for multiple print runs, which, gives some consistency. And I will say that there are differences in card stock from what I can tell from the Japanese print run and the Belgian print run. I tend to seemingly lean weirdly enough toward the Belgian print run. Like the Everfest cards feel thicker. But then, contrary, the WTR Japanese cards have a much cleaner side profile when you take them out. So I don't know if I've ever discussed this, but here is a stack of WTR Japanese cards. So again, I'm going to bring myself bigger here for a second. And when you look at these from the side, this is from a bunch of bulk purchases that I had worked on here, and you can clearly see those kind of cut lines or the striations across the packs. And what that basically does is it creates this like weird rippling effect where it's like every other couple of cards, and if you look at the corners of those, you can clearly see where the kind of the cutter happens to go, and it's not specific in one location, it's all across every card. But the WTR cards themselves, the Japanese print run there, seem like they are much better quality than the Belgium ones, and again, that's maybe anecdotal. I don't have any actual proof of one over the other being better. It's just that for some reason I seem to prefer those, and I noticed that they come in, especially in bulk boxes when you buy them. Those cards seem to come in less damaged. So anyways, back on the sustainable product here, it's awesome that they are using the fully, I think they call it the flow wrapper, which is great because, this is such I think this honestly will not only set the tone for the next couple of years, but if this becomes sustainable and they have the ability to leverage this product and make it to where others will follow suit, Flesh and Blood will be the pioneer of this, which is great because this sustainability thing is definitely something that is super awesome. As they, this kind of article, I'm not going to read it verbatim here, but they talk about how it, what sustainability means to them, and that they've noticed that, TCG companies have really been reducing the packaging, or they talk about different packaging here, and this is where you kind of get into the Flesh and Blood's philosophy of not trying to go to the big box stores, which I found was a very unique statement that they had said within this, is that they again are Flesh and Blood, so they're trying to bring people together from the whole Flesh and Blood being in person versus trying to target the Walmarts or Targets. This is pretty much where I see that they are focusing on the local game store, and that's fantastic. We need people to kind of keep these stores around because I think they're kind of becoming a dying breed, sadly enough. In Indianapolis, we haven't lost many game stores over the last couple of years, but I'll tell you, there's a couple that I don't think are doing super well, and then there's others that, depending on how the next couple of years pan out, they may or may not exist anymore. But again, obviously, as a business, you gotta be able to make it work. But here is that exact statement here. So your Walmarts and Targets, we don't care about Walmart and Target. The fact that that is written down and said from James White is awesome. Obviously, from a business perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that you don't want to have anything in those stores, but I get it. That's what MetaZoo is doing right now, or Meta, whatever. MetaZoo. Mike Waddell? I don't know. I forget how to pronounce his name, but he's targeting very heavily to get into those locations. And I see that there is, just an extreme market difference in philosophy thought between them. I had another video that'll be coming out soon, but we ended up ripping some cards in half here. So there's a ripped in half Flesh and Blood card. Here's a ripped in half Magic card. Here's a ripped in half MetaZoo card. And we kind of analyze some of that. I get a local game store's thoughts on the different paper qualities and distribution within that, or the support for the LGS behind the mindset and why he may or may not be interested in carrying those products. But again, the fact that they're not going to Walmart and Target is, pretty good. Sooner or later, maybe later in life, the game's going to last long enough. They're going to go after those markets probably at some point. I know it's not their core audience, but getting more exposure to the game, growing the player count, they'll probably have to target those at some point. So as you continue down here, they talk about booster boxes and drafting. And then obviously, they say, yes, drafting is very important. And I agree. Drafting is actually one of the funnest things I've been able to do so far. The Farewell to Welcome to Wraith events, those are amazing. I have one coming up here that they're holding on Thursday, which I know is a little bit late, but they were able to, I guess, get permission to delay it due to weather concerns that were happening, because obviously there's some pretty serious snowstorms that happened. But I attended several of those, and I loved it. The experience is great. I cannot wait to the next set, which is, again, where we kind of lead into this. So as I talk about draft chaff, I think he hits a nail on the head here, which is talking about the balance of creating meaningful human experience, but at the same time, commons in this game are not necessarily complete junk. I can tell you 100,000, 200,000 magic cards that are stuff that will never see the light of day, that people basically were turning them into characters. Like, these are some Pokemon ones that are three-dimensional because my wife enjoys doing that kind of thing. And I can tell you there are much more Magic cards that are completely unplayable than the very few cards that Flesh and Blood has banned, even though I know that that's, again, a universal controversial statement, so to speak, at the moment. Most people don't like the fact that they've banned cards, but in reality, there's not that much problem with banning, especially at the level that LSS is doing it. They're really not banning a lot. Which is opposite to how Magic is doing it, where they'll just release a bunch of stuff and, whatever. They're going to ban it because it breaks every other format. But who knows? They'll have to kind of come around to that. I've talked to some other individuals, and maybe there's a way that later they can do the ban list where maybe if it's a list of 100 cards, hypothetically, you can have X amount of those 100 cards, or in your deck, you're allowed so many points. They assign a point value to the card, and then you're allowed to have X amount of those in your deck, depending on how. Obviously, get really complicated, would still probably break certain things, but either way, having a ban list is not a bad thing. Flesh and Blood here, does make the statement here, the utility across all of the commons. So in general, Flesh and Blood cards have more utility across commons, which again, I 100% agree with. Sink Below, Fate Foreseen, Razor Reflex, heck, even, well, Seek and Destroy is not it, but there's just a plenty of cards, even within classes, within those classes that are considered staples, even in decks, and there's commoner format, other thing like that. So, as it continues here, where's LSS going? And the industry needs completely recyclable, stuff. So he keeps talking about that, which is great. Then they go into talking about the Pro Tour, which is coming up. A lot of people in Indianapolis are pretty excited about trying to get to that. New Jersey. And then the product side, this is the part that I really wanted to touch on. He's talking about that there's going to be a particular focus where they're going to have something that's going to be like the Iradex, but it's going to be released where it's going to be maybe I guess PvE, maybe it's a better CC, or maybe it's like instead of the WTR CC decks that were basically the only ones that were released instead of these Blitz decks that came out for Monarch and Tales of Aria, there's probably going to be some sort of Blitz deck, or maybe there's some sort of package that you go to the LGS and then you have to bring your deck and then you battle against their particular LGS deck, and then if you can do X amount of damage, you get a prize or you get a point towards something. It'd be really neat to see where that goes. It talks here about the next year mid-year is going to be their next standalone set, so that's June. So here we are, January, February, so March, April, May, June, 4 months from now. So that's awesome. We only have to wait 3 months. I'm glad it's not like the Magic release schedules, because obviously there's, some wallet fatigue when you get into that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping that LSS settles into a kind of a portfolio of maybe like 4 main sets and 1 supplementary, or 1 supplementary and 2 special sets or something like that. I think anything less than 6 to 8 or around 6 to 8 is going to keep the interest high. People are interested, but you're not going to have a bunch of over wallet fatigue is the best word. But that is the end of this article. And really, I just kind of wanted to point out that there was some pretty unique items in this, and coupling that with the podcast that was there, I'm just excited to see that they are announcing these, standalone standalone products, because I think that's going to be something that's going to catapult this game into another level, to be able to have people to have access to those in a level that has never been there before. So once again, I thank you so very much for taking a listen. Please do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, hit that bell button for notification. Look at other YouTube content creators. Check them out. There's a lot of good information out there. Every one of us covers a different little niche, and I'm currently trying to figure out where my niche is going to be. But thank you so much. Again, check out this article. look at some of the other YouTubers that are out there. Stay safe. Jacob, have a good day.